I'm going to try and complete Kamoshida's Palace in Persona 5 Royale without capturing enemy personas during this process, but I'm going to do it on Merciless, and this is the first time I'm playing on this difficulty. On top of all this, I will try to 100% the palace, which means collecting all the loot, accessories, items, beating all the shadows and finding the will seeds. I'm sure everything will go smoothly. Before I start, I should mention that having a variety of personas and elements is very important on Merciless, and here is why. On this difficulty, hitting a weakness causes massive critical damage, and it works both ways. I'm sure that you've already realized, but this is a huge challenge for me because I only have a few elements to work with: wind, curse, electric, fire and physical attacks. And also gunfire, let's not forget about them. So, how am I going to deal with this? Let's find out. Firstly, I have to choose the difficulty level I will play on. Naturally, I choose Merciless. I didn't think too much about the character's name, so I decided to name him John Merciless. But there wasn't enough space for all the letters, so I compromised and named him John M. After that, I skipped the long intro and jumped right into the first infiltration of Kamoshida's Palace. After a short anime sequence, me and Ryuji entered the palace just to get caught by a soldier and get thrown in a cell right away. Shadow Kamoshida appeared to beat us, but it was at this moment when an anime sequence begins in which the main character invokes Arsene, the persona I'm gonna use during this whole game. Now begins the first of many tutorials we have to go through. We enter a fight against two jack-lanterns who are weak against wind attacks, but because Arsene is a curse type persona, we can take advantage of their weakness. In the end, this doesn't really matter because it's just the first fight and we defeat them with 4 attacks. As we were looking for a way out, we stumbled upon a talking cat named Morgana, who was also trapped in the cell. He said he knew how to escape, so we freed him and followed him. He turned out to be a persona user too, and his persona was Zoro, a wind type who is weak to electric attacks. Now it's time for another tutorial where Morgana explains how to take advantage of the enemy's weaknesses during the fights, the basic of basics, to quote him. We fought our way through some more shadows, like these two pixies, who are weak against Arsene's attacks, and finally we made it to the exit, but Morgana stayed behind to deal with some unfinished business. Only Joker and Ryuji returned to the real world. And that was the end of our first day in the palace. It was pretty easy, since we are still in the tutorial phase, but we didn't find any loot or treasures, and I have the feeling that our luck will change during the second infiltration. The next day, we entered the palace again and followed Morgana to the place where we were captured before. We want to see if there are any other prisoners here. But as soon as I take control of my character, another tutorial begins and Morgana shows me how to ambush the enemies. But unfortunately, I get a bit nervous and press the wrong button. Luckily, I still managed to surprise the enemy shadow and start the battle with a jack-lantern which I easily defeat. After the fight, I find a safe room where I can save my progress. At this point, Ryuji reveals that he brought a toy gun with him. It looks fake, but it will fool the enemies in the palace. Afterwards, we enter another room, the training passage hall, and another tutorial begins in which Morgana teaches me how to use a gun. The shadows here are weak to gunfire, so I shoot them down without any trouble. At this point, Morgana lets me take control of him during battles, which means I can use his wind attacks. Basically, I've doubled down the coverage of the elements I can use during battle. And to celebrate this, we face two jack-lanterns again, but this time they are no match for Morgana's wind skills. After another tutorial where we learned how to do an all-out attack, which is a powerful move that finishes off the enemies when they are all knocked down, we reached the place where we started the game and witnessed Kamoshida's cruelty towards his volleyball students. We feel angry and disgusted by his actions, so we decided to go back and confront him in the main hall of the palace. Here, we face off against two bicorn shadows, but we cannot win this battle. It's a scripted loss that triggers a cutscene where Ryuji unleashes his own persona, Captain Kid. It has the power of electricity, which gives us an edge in the next fight. Now we have to deal with a mini-boss, Eligor, and two more bicorns. Eligor has no weakness, but we can zap the bicorns with Captain Kid and take them out in one hit. Then we focus on Eligor with a combination of electric and physical attacks, while Morgana heals us when needed. In the end, we defeat the mini-boss and exit the palace, ending our second day of infiltration. I'm happy with our progress and our new gained element, but you know what would make me truly happy? To know that you have subscribed to the channel because you like the content and want to see more of it.
Okay.
Back in the real world, Ryuji and I make a pact that unlocks the first rank of the Chariot Arcana. It's not very useful right now, but it will be later. Then I get access to all the DLCs. I don't plan to use them, but I accidentally made a big mistake. I thought they were just cosmetic DLCs, but when I opened the box, I also got potions and money. Having those items in my inventory would have made this challenge too easy, so I decided to restart the game and do everything again. It was a bit annoying, but foolishness comes with a price, I guess.
You stupid!
During the next few days at school, a series of events starts happening that led us back into the palace, initiating the third day of infiltration. But wait. Upon our arrival, we discovered that Anne has been accidentally teleported with us, and because she still can't use a persona, we decided to send her back to the real world. And after a short sequence in which Kamoshida orders his soldiers to capture us, begins another tutorial, in which Morgana shows me how to capture personas that I can use during battle. Obviously, this is useless for me because of the challenge I'm undertaking. During a scripted sequence, I'm forced to capture a pixie, a persona I have no intention of using. This is followed by another tutorial where I learn about Joker's ability to switch his equipped persona during battle, and on top of that I'm also forced to use the newly captured pixie to defeat two bicorns. Of course, this doesn't count for the challenge I'm doing because the game forces me to do this. I'm still in the tutorial phase, even though I've been playing for a few hours, and so many tutorials have already started to frustrate me. Anyway, putting my frustration aside, I re-equip Arsene after the fight via the menu. Then, I find myself stepping into a room with 3 patrolling shadows who are protecting the first treasure I found since the beginning of the game. I attack the shadow close to the entrance, trying to conserve SP as there were 2 more enemies in the room. Uncertain of when I'll be able to save my progress, I rely solely on Morgana's abilities to defeat 2 Jack-Lantern shadows, exploiting their weakness to wind. After defeating all the shadows, I open the treasure to find a silver dagger for Joker. It's a significant upgrade, boosting plus 20 attack power. Without a second thought, I equip it. Suddenly, the main action goes away from the group and bravely come back to enter into the palace alone. However, her solo mission is cut short as Kamoshida's shadows captured her. Back to the group, we overheard the shadows discussing their recent capture. Morgana, ever the detective, decides to investigate. Could it be someone we know? We waste no time and backtrack to save her. In the palace corridor, we fight 2 bicorns, annihilating them thanks to Captain Kid's electric abilities. After the fight, he reaches level 5 and learns the physical attack Launch. We arrive at the location marked on the map, where we hear Anne screaming. Rushing in, we're met with a horrified scene of Kamoshida torturing her, but not for long, as Anne awakens Carmen, her fire ability persona, turning the tables on Kamoshida. The sequence ends in a showdown with a mini-boss named Belphegor, who is weak against fire attacks. The fight is straightforward for Anne. With the experience gained from the fight, Arsene reaches level 4 and learns Sakunda, an ability that decreases enemy accuracy and evasions for 3 turns. Post-battle, Kamoshida makes a cowardly escape, so we return to the real world, marking the end of our third day of palace infiltration. Back in town, we form a pact with Anne, unlocking the first rank of the Lover's Arcana. Now my team is complete, and I have quite a decent element coverage: Curse, Wind, Electric, and Fire. Upon returning home in the evening, we encounter a mysterious doctor who piqued our interest. Rumor has it that she sells experimental and illegal medicine. Meet Takemi, our new supplier of incredibly useful medicine for the Merciless difficulty. Before we go to sleep and move on to the next day, I form a pact with Morgana, unlocking the first rank of the Magician Arcana. This will enable us to craft infiltration tools for our palace adventures. Before the team enters Kamoshida's palace again, Morgana forces me to go to Takemi's clinic to see if I can buy some medicine. I talk to her and buy only 2 pieces of Revivadrin because my budget doesn't allow me for more. With this medicine, I can revive anyone during battle. In that same afternoon, I meet Ryuji at the airsoft shop. When we get there, Ryuji gives me some money to buy something for him too, but instead I have a better idea and buy a Bliss dagger for Joker. Even though the dagger has slightly less attack than the one that I already have equipped, I think that the Bliss dagger has the potential to be more useful in future battles where shadows are weak to ice, and I don't want to give away what's going to happen later on in the video, but let's just say that this was a big brain move.
Yeah, this is big brain time.
I also buy for Morgana a sword because I don't think I'll find anything better in the palace. I buy a hit whip for Anne because I have some extra money to spend, but in her case, it's not really a necessity because I'll find a better weapon in the palace. The only problem is I don't know when. Then, The night before we go to bed, Morgana teaches me how to build infiltration tools. Right now, I only have materials for a lockpick, but I'll need to get more materials when we enter the palace next time. I've now reached a point where it seems like the game opens up and starts to give me the much desired freedom to spend my time as I want. I can enter the palace or do something else entirely, and I decide to go spend time with Takemi to try advancing the Arcana rank a little bit. And now I can buy more medicine to heal during battles. The next day, I decide to spend it with Ryuji instead of going into the palace. After the whole afternoon training, the Chariot Arcana rank increases, giving me the option to negotiate with shadows again if I fail the first time. Another day goes by and I still don't want to go to the palace. It's better to spend the time stocking up on everything I need, because I have a feeling things are going to get a lot harder now that we are out of the tutorial phase. So it was time to go looking for work to earn some money. This decision will be one of the best I ever made during this challenge, and you'll find out why soon. I get a job at the grocery store and spend the whole day working. In the evening, when I return to the cafe, I talk to Sojiro and unlock the first rank of the Hierophant Arcana. Finally, I've done all the preparation I can do so far. I feel like I'm ready for whatever comes next, so I meet up with the team on the school roof, starting the 4th infiltration. As I enter the other world, I am forced to fuse two personas. In this case, Arsene and Pixie, the only ones I have. The result is a new persona called Agation. I kept trying to see if I could skip the tutorial, but in the end, I had to do it anyway, losing a level 4 Arsene for a new persona that I can't even use because of the challenge I'm doing in this video. After all this nonsense, I unlocked the 2nd rank of the Fool's Arcana, and now I can observe and highlight hidden objects in the palace. Worth it, I guess. Luckily, I can recover Arsene again. Unfortunately, he's only at level 1, and I have to pay a lot of money. This is where the money I made working comes in. Without it, I wouldn't have had the necessary amount to buy Arsene back, and I would have had to redo a few hours of the game. Unfortunately, this kind of situations will be present through all this video. Keep watching and you'll see. When I exit the Velvet Room, I teleport to the last save room and receive an SP recovery item from Morgana. Afterwards, I take a quick detour to explore the palace further. And what do I find? A bunch of tutorials. In the first one, I learned Baton Pass, a technique with which I can switch to another ally after attacking an enemy's weakness without losing a turn. Next came the second tutorial, Stealth and Ambush Tactics. I learned how to hide behind objects to ambush enemies without being seen. Here, I fight 3 mandrakes who are weak against gun damage and I eliminate them easily. As I ventured deeper into the palace, I encounter a room in which I have to use the third eye and solve a simple puzzle with ease. The reward? Access to the center of the room in which I find a map with the layout of the current level. I exit the hall corridor and enter a battle against Jack-Lantern, Pixie and a Mandrake, defeating them easily because I have all the necessary elements they are weak to. Advancing a bit further, the corridor leading forward was blocked. No problem though. I climbed to the beams above and leapt from chandelier to chandelier until the other side of the room, where I find a locked chest right in front of the save room. The next 3 battles present a thrilling challenge. I'm up against shadows I've never encountered before, so I'm a little bit nervous. First, I face 2 K-Sith opponents who are weak to wind attacks. Their weakness make them easy prey. In the second battle, I fight against Silky, who is weak to fire-based attacks. And finally, the third encounter is against 3 Agathian, all weak to wind. Since I have all the necessary elements, these battles are very easy for me. After the third battle, my new Arsene levels up and reaches level 2. Moving deeper into the palace, I arrive in a room with several compartments, each closed off from the others. To unlock the bars blocking the path to the exit, I must solve a puzzle in a specific order. At one point, I squeeze through a tight ventilation duct that leads me to a treasure. Inside lies a sooty ghastly gear. This object needs to be cleared to find out what it really is. At the moment, I can't do anything with it, so I make a mental note to put it in the washing machine when I return to my home. After I manage to solve the puzzle and enter the next room, I'm ambushed by 2 K-Sith shadows, which I easily defeat. In the beverage warehouse, I find another treasure. This time, it contains a soul drop, an incredibly useful item that can restore SP for any team member. For now, I don't use it because it will be useful later on. Soon after, I notice that the exit path from the warehouse is blocked, so I have to climb to a shelf and enter another ventilation duct. Emerging from the duct, I find myself in a room where there's a shadow guarding a treasure. I jump to ambush it, but this time though I decide to negotiate rather than fight the jack-lantern, and to my surprise I receive an object. I find a breeze ring that offers the skill Garu for whoever equips it. I give it to Joker, and now Arsene can use the wind ability. Moving a bit further, I arrive at a spiral case that is broken in the middle. This doesn't pose a major obstacle because Morgana gives me a grappling hook that I can use to traverse vertically and allows me to reach places previously unattainable. After I climb up, I go to the end of the stairs and find another treasure containing a sooty ghastly gear. To move further, I have to backtrack a little. As I step into a new room, I notice that a very powerful enemy is patrolling the corridor. I'm quite scared to fight him, so I retreat to the safe room and save the progress made so far. Now that I have a moment of peace, I start planning my next move. I'm in a tough spot, facing multiple shadows. I need to be smart and strategic. After contemplating my options for a few minutes, I decide that the wisest thing to do is to face the most dangerous shadow first. With my HP and SP full, I leave the safe room and engage with a huge shadow that looks like a knight on a horse. His name is Berith, a very powerful enemy that I haven't encountered before, so I'm starting to feel a little anxious about this fight. I try to scan him with Morgana, but no weaknesses were found, so I resort to the classic tactic of trial and error. At the beginning of the fight, I start shooting with Morgana's gun, but the enemy is unaffected by this type of damage. He's also resistant to Carmen's fire, and Captain Kid's attack barely scratch him. In exchange, he hits back hard. He slashes Ryuji, knocking him out with one single attack. This is where the real challenge begins, and I need to find his weak spot fast. I switch to Joker and slash him with my dagger. And surprise, surprise, my dagger has an ice effect on it. He's weak to ice. Lucky me. I take advantage of the frozen state and hit him with technical attacks. He falls down and the team launches an all-out attack, dealing massive damage. Now that I've discovered the optimal strategy, I repeat this pattern until he's down for good. That was an insane fight. Luckily, I was inspired earlier and bought this dagger for Joker, because without it and access to ice attacks, I wouldn't have been able to defeat this strong enemy. After the fight, Joker reaches level 7 and Arsene reaches level 3. Then I move on to the next room, which is full of books. There, among them, I spot a special one called the Queen Book. I don't know what it's for, but I grab it anyway. After that, I head to another room where I find the Beefcake Book, so I grab it and left. As I explore the hallway, I run into another Berith and I try to use the same strategy as in the last fight. Unfortunately, this time things didn't go so well for me, because he took out Morgana in one hit and I had to fight with only 3 party members. Luckily, Joker landed a freezing attack that stopped Berith at a crucial moment, and Ryuji followed up with a critical hit that almost finished it off. I was so close to victory, but then Berith killed Anne with another brutal strike. I was starting to feel anxious, but I didn't give up. And then Ryuji delivered the final blow with a simple attack and we won. And on top of that, I didn't even have to use a revive on anyone. After that intense battle, I went to the end of the hallway to open a treasure chest. Inside was the Judge Mace, a powerful weapon for Ryuji. It was the best thing I could find for him in this palace. I entered the main library and spotted a new book on the table that looked very important. Now that I have found all 3 books, I need to solve the puzzle by putting them in the correct place on the shelves. Suddenly, a secret passage opened up and revealed a hidden room. It was pretty creepy. There were photos of Shiho everywhere, all taken by Kamoshida. He was obsessed with her. I searched the room for clues and found 2 things: a medal that belongs to him and a map of the whole castle. They could be useful, so I took them with me. But as I was about to leave, a shadow attacked me. It was a new kind of enemy called a disaster shadow that had a special interaction. If I defeat it fast, it would explode and damage other enemies. The battle was against 3 Bicorn shadows, which I defeat easily because the fight is scripted and everything goes automatically. After the fight, I made a quick stop at the library on the hallway. There was 1 more book slot there and I fill it with the last one found. As a reward I got 1 protein. That was disappointing. I was expecting something more Useful, but I didn't let it ruin my mood, so I went to the blocked door and used the metal to open it and reach the East Building Annex. At this point all my characters have low SP, so I decide to call it a day and head back to reality to rest and recover. I get home and have a nice chat with Sojiro, who now lets me go out at night. I seize this chance to go out to the laundromat to wash the dirty armor that was looted from the palace. When all this is done, I get 4 items: old Duke coat, succubus pajamas, old pajamas, and a Duke coat. All of them are much better than what I'm wearing right now, so I plan to use them when we return to the palace. I decide to stay in the real world for a few more days since I need to stock up on some supplies before going back into the palace. Nothing much happens during this time, except that I hang out with Ryuji and Takemi to raise some friendship points with them. When I'm ready to resume the palace infiltration, I gather the team on the school roof and discuss our strategy. We have new armor and more medicine, so we should be able to make more progress this time. Upon entering the palace, I check the armor I have previously washed. The majority of the gear proved useful. Joker got the succubus pajamas, which offers immunity to sleep effects, while Anne received the old pajamas, providing sleep resistance. Ryuji was granted the Duke coat, increasing his HP by 30. Unfortunately, Morgana was left without new armor, and that will cost me later on. Keep watching and you'll see. When I reach the main hall, the one with the imposing statue of Kamoshida, a cutscene starts that leads to an extremely difficult battle against an adversary without weaknesses. During the battle, a new tutorial teaches me defensive tactics against powerful attacks. Unfortunately, Morgana dies from a single hit even though I was holding my guard up. At this point, I felt clearly that he needed better armor, so I made a mental note to buy one from the store when we get back to the real world. But still, I don't give up and revive Morgana with a Revivadrin. Then I try to put the enemy to sleep using Carmen's abilities, but my efforts were futile, and during his attack turn, Morgana is killed again, so I have to use another Revivadrin and I'm only left with one in my inventory. Now that I've seen how dangerous this enemy is, I adopt a more conservative approach, using only basic attacks and healing spells with Morgana, and when the enemy unleashes its special attack, I command the team to assume a defensive stance. After a few more rounds repeating the same strategy, victory was eventually ours, and Arsene ascended to level 5, learning Dream Needle, a skill capable of inducing sleep in adversaries. When the fight ends, new adversaries appear and I use the grappling hook to ascend to safety on the upper level. From here, I notice that there's a chest left unopened on the ground floor, so I decide to go back down and defeat all the enemies. All this effort just for a soul drop. Ascending again, I discovered 2 more treasures on the first floor that contain an alert capsule, baptismal water, and sooty heavy armor. Before I go any further, I notice a red door at the end of the corridor. Behind it, I can find the first wheel seat of the palace, a unique collectible. For those who do not know what these are, let me briefly explain. Wheel seats are rare items scattered across each palace. Gathering all 3 within a palace fuses them into a skull, an accessory that grants abilities useful in combat and can be equipped by any team member. Now that we are on the same page, I return to my quest and find the red lotus seed behind the red door. After taking the seed, I proceed down the corridor until I reach a spiral staircase. Here I am faced with 2 options: ascend or descend. In the end, I decide to go down, and at the staircase base, there is a formidable enemy waiting for me. I fled in panic, only for him to chase me and attack me. I am very afraid of losing all my progress, so I use an item called Vanish Ball to escape the fight. Now that I have a moment to breathe, I tend to my team wounds, restoring our strength for the battles ahead. With renewed resolve, I decide to go back and fight with the previous enemy again, but this time, I'm the one who's taking the initiative.
I am the one who knocks.
As the clash begins, I calm myself because the enemy is just a simple Berith. I already have a strategy for this type of enemy, so I defeat him easily, realizing that I panicked for nothing before. After the fight, I notice the true purpose of his placement: to guard a hidden chest under the stairs. Unfortunately, it's locked, so I have to use a lockpick to open it. Inside, I find a whip called Guilty Whip, which I equip to on. Ascending the stairs, I end up on the roof where 3 formidable shadows are patrolling, so I decide to use the grab grappling hook to reach a higher vantage point. From here, I study their patrol patterns and sneak up on them without being seen by the others too. I use Sakunda to decrease the enemy's precision during Joker's turn, and Ormina to put him to sleep on Anne's turn. I then follow up with technical attacks to deal high damage. Despite my efforts, Anne is killed in a single hit. I use a Revivadrin on her, then put the enemy to sleep again and use a technical attack followed by an all-out attack. With this strategy, I finally defeat the first Barret. Unfortunately, another battle against another Barret immediately begins. The second fight goes similarly to the first one, but this time no one dies, and afterwards Captain Kirk learns Tarukaja, an ability that increases attack for 3 turns. With only one adversary left on the rooftop, I made the bold decision to engage in combat. In hindsight, this was a big mistake. The correct approach would have been to evade the confrontation and live without harm. During the fight, I used the same strategy as before, but unfortunately, Barret kills Anne again with a single blow. I start to panic because I don't have any more Revivadrin, and I'm afraid of losing all my progress. In desperation, I start using items from my inventory to attack. I use Freeze Spray to capitalize on Barry's vulnerability to ice, followed by a Molotov cocktail to induce burning status, which inflicts passive damage after Barry's attack on Joker misses. After the fight, I took a moment to heal and gather all the scatter items on the rooftop before moving on. I ascended the castle tower, where I find the green glass seat, the second wheel seat in the palace. Then I enter a room with a moving floor that creates obstacles as I move. Driven by curiosity, I decide to explore further and reach a room with a strange elevator. Opting to prioritize the need to secure my progress, I choose to ignore it for now, but I'll be back soon, don't worry. Running low on SP and realizing Morgana needed better defense after some tough fights, I decide to cut our exploration short and head back to the real world. The next day, I go to the weapon shop and buy for Morgana the best armor available, a cat sweater. Additionally, I grab some shield goggles for the whole team, except Joker, because they offer resistance to the dizzy effect. Also on the same day, I go to Takemi's clinic and buy 6 Revivadrin, hopefully enough to see us through the rest of the palace. The next day, we enter Kamoshida's Palace again, and I return to the mysterious elevator that I ignored last time. I take the elevator down and end up in a tunnel that at the end has a secret passage hidden by Kamoshida's reversible portrait. On the other side was the main hall with the imposing Kamoshida statue. Here I find 2 previously inaccessible treasures that contain a lifestone and a magic ointment. In a small room on the left is a lever in the shape of a ram's head. Pulling it causes a grinding sound, suggesting that something has been unlocked somewhere. Following my gut, I return to the elevator room. This time I go down the stairs to another wooden elevator that takes me down to the castle basement. To my surprise, I don't go down to a basement, but to a dark canal with a powerful foe guarding a door. I assume that's where the third wheel seat is located. I enter a fight against a new mini-boss named Mara, who has no weaknesses. This is definitely one of the personas of all time. The fight is not as hard as I expected. I keep putting him to sleep with Anne and Joker's attacks, then I follow up with technical attacks from Morgana and Ryuji. I repeat this strategy for a few minutes until he's defeated. After the fight, I enter the room and find the blue last seat. The 3 wheel seats found so far merge into a new accessory called Crystal Skull. Anyone on the team can equip this item, which grants the ability to use Diarama, a healing spell for the entire team. After thinking for a bit, I decide to give the Crystal Skull to Ryuji because he's the only one who doesn't have healing abilities in the team, and I might need it at some point if someone else is under crowd control and can't heal. With this detour complete, I can go back the way I came so I can save the progress made. Ascending the staircase, I barely enter a new room and I'm already ambushed by enemies. Luckily for me, the enemy shadows miss all their attacks in the first round, and then I defeat them easily, capitalizing on their element weakness. After the fight, I calm down and take a moment to analyze my surroundings. 2 treasures are being guarded by 3 more patrolling enemies. I'm already familiar with these foes, so I engage and defeat them without difficulty. Then I claim my rewards, 3 sleep vitals and a relax gel. Then I keep climbing the stairs until I reach a bridge full of traps, guarded by a statue of Kamoshida, which is missing its eyes. To deactivate the traps and progress, I must go back and search for an enemy who have Kamoshida's eyes. Backtracking, I identify the enemy who has the first eye and surprise attack him to initiate combat with an Eligor, vulnerable to electric attacks. So with Ryuji's help, the fight is pretty easy, and I receive the Randy right eye. Now I have to find the other eye, so I head towards the safe room until I see 3 strong enemies that I assume have the other missing eye. After defeating them, I find out that none of them have what I'm looking for, so I keep exploring the room and ascend to a platform to reach an enemy that was hidden there. Another surprise attack, another Eligor encounter. By this point, you know my strategy for this type of enemy. Come on everybody, let's say it together.
Say the line, Bart!
Put him to sleep and do some technical attacks. After the battle, I acquired the last full left eye and made my way back to the bridge. Once I insert the eyes into the statue, all the active traps stop, allowing me safe passage to the other side. While crossing the bridge, I notice a chest with a breath ring in it. This thing has HP bonus on it, so I give it to Morgana to boost his survival chances in case of an unexpected attack. At the end of the bridge, an enemy shadow awaits me while guarding two chests containing revival bead and baptismal water. Despite the powerful duo, I emerge victorious without too many difficulties. Ascending the final staircase, I approach the royal throne where Kamoshida awaits me. The hall is guarded by enemy shadows that I defeat easily, allowing me to find another revival bead from the treasure near the door. Finally, I try to enter the throne room, but the door is blocked, so I use my grappling hook to climb and enter through a niche in the room where there's a chest with a physical ointment in it. However, the path was blocked, so I'm forced to retreat and seek an alternative route via another niche, leading to the opposite corridor. Now I have a direct path to Kamoshida's treasure room, but upon entry, we discover that the treasure is intangible. To materialize and be able to steal it, we need to confront Kamoshida with a calling card in the real world, accusing him of the crimes committed. With our final plan set, we return to the real world, ready to start the final act of this heist. The final confrontation is upon us, and this is our last chance to prepare for it. There's no turning back. I make my way to the weapon shop because I want to equip everyone with the best weaponry available for sale. I spend most of my money here for each member of the team to receive an upgrade. With our arsenal secured, I go to Takemi's clinic to buy myself only one Revivadrin. That's all I could afford after buying the firearms. I hope it was a wise decision and will serve us well when the moment of truth arrives. The next day, I meet with the team on the school roof to decide what to do next. If we send the calling card now, we will automatically enter the palace the next day. Since we have already made the necessary preparations for the final battle, we entrust Ryuji with the task, giving his ability to spread the word. After Ryuji spreads the card throughout the school, Kamoshida confronts us and we automatically enter the palace for the final battle. The treasure has now manifested before us, is tangible and within reach. Our plan was successful. We steal the crown and as we are about to leave, Kamoshida appears and strikes with a volleyball in an attempt to steal the crown from us. This led into a short sequence where Kamoshida keeps talking nonsense and the final battle begins. Once the battle starts, I quickly realize that he lacks any kind of weaknesses. This was going to be a very challenging fight. Initially, I use Sakunda from our Sen skill set to reduce Kamoshida's accuracy, followed up by a series of basic attacks to conserve SP until his health is at 75%. From time to time, I try to put him to sleep, but he resists every attempt. As the battle goes on, I manage to reduce his health down by 25%, only for him to fully restore it using the trophy that is in front of him. Now I can shift my strategy to attack the trophy instead of Kamoshida. Unfortunately, it has no weaknesses, but doesn't have much health either, and after attacking it for a few rounds, I managed to destroy it, preventing any further health recovering for Kamoshida. At this point, I was feeling quite confident because the battle seemed to turn in my favor, but Kamoshida had a trick up his sleeve, calling in reinforcements. Mishima was the first one to appear, setting up a very powerful special AoE attack with a volleyball pass. For this attack, I am forced to keep my guard up with the whole team and block it if I don't want everyone to die in one hit. Even so, I lose half my health from this single attack. After Mishima leaves, this time Kamoshida calls for Suzui to pass him the ball. Fortunately for me, Suzui had elemental weaknesses, which I exploited to defeat her easily and thus managed to interrupt Kamoshida's special attack. In the next phase of the fight, I need to send someone to snatch Kamoshida's crown while the rest of the team attack and distract him. Initially, I sent Ryuji to do the job, hoping that the rest of us can keep Kamoshida occupied, but unfortunately, I can't deal enough damage to distract him and he noticed Ryuji while he was trying to ascend to a vantage point. I failed the first heist attempt. However, I was stubborn and sent Ryuji once more, but this time I changed the battle tactics. Since last time the damage dealt with my own attacks was the problem, now I'm gonna use the items from my inventory to inflict damage and capture Kamoshida's attention. Regrettably, even with this revised strategy, Ryuji is caught once again because of the lack of damage. For the third attempt, I choose Anne as the thief, hoping things will go differently this time, but she's also spotted by Kamoshida, so now I'm left with only one option, Morgana. This time, however, I managed to deal enough damage to Kamoshida, allowing Morgana to pass the first phase and ascend to the mezzanine. Now it's time for the second phase, where Morgana is faced with the challenge going towards the chandelier. During all this phase, Ryuji almost died multiple times, but thanks to the medicine I bought from Takemi, his vitality was restored. As the confrontation goes on, I managed to do enough damage for Morgana to complete the second phase and reach the chandelier. During phase 3, all he has to do is jump on Kamoshida and take his crown. However, during this round, I didn't manage to do enough damage to Kamoshida and he sees Morgana, forcing him to return to the party. I was starting to get frustrated from the repeated failed attempts, so I decide to defeat Kamoshida normally with a full frontal assault by the entire team. At this point, he doesn't have much health left anyway. With Morgana back in the team, I decide to go for a simple strategy of healing everyone on every turn, while attacking Kamoshida with the other members. After repeating the same process over and over during 30 minutes, finally I ended the fight with a fire attack from Carmen, managing to defeat Kamoshida on Merciless difficulty and complete 100% of the palace. Afterwards, a cinematic sequence starts, showcasing the retrieval of the crown and our return to the realm of reality.